to Gab and Jam, episode 313.
And what are we talking about today?
All right, on episode 313, we're talking about underappreciated bands that you still might not know.
Yeah.
So everybody's going back, retro, 70s, 80s, 90s, the aughts, all the way back, right? And we hear playlists all the time of people call themselves compiling, the best of whatever these years are.
Yeah.
And there are some bands that never seem to make those playlists.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the I guess the inspiration for this episode. It's like, you know what? There are some bands that are kicking fucking ass, and they don't make the playlist. And so we think it's a shame. We want you guys to know about it.
Yeah, or sometimes you just know like one or two songs.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you might hear like this one song.
Yeah.
You might feel like, okay, that's all this group has ever done.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and that to me, for certain groups, it kind of like it robs them.
Yeah.
Of really how important they were and how
Yeah.
important the music is, and what a treasure trove of great stuff they got.
Yeah, I love it.
So,
all right, so the first one is one that we both love when we met in the 80s, Violent Femmes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they had quite a few songs. Children of the Revolution, Blister in the Sun.
Yeah.
Just what was the one album?
well, I know for me, their first album.
Okay.
The Violent Femmes, that's the one that had Blister in the Sun on it.
Yeah.
It was just it. Daddy, please don't go.
Please.
Gone, Daddy. Yeah, please don't go. And then Gone, Daddy, gone. Your love is gone.
Yes.
That whole album is just...
And it's like, it's punk, but it's
awesome.
punk that's not taking itself too seriously, for me. Not taking itself too seriously, and that's not so unlistenable.
Well, no, because the musicianship on that record is top shelf.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you listen to that first Violent Femmes album, it's raw.
Yeah.
But the musicianship is it's top notch.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a great album.
Yeah. So make sure you check it out. You know what? We'll include a playlist link with this post so that if you want to go over and hear these songs, you can do that. All right. The second for me, I know we've talked about them on a genre unto themselves, is Cake. And Cake, he's always had this quirky kind of sound, and we realize it's one guy, and he just kind of keeps reassembling the band, but it's his sound. Yeah. Because I never knew that the players were changing. Yeah. I just know the sound continues. Yeah. And so it's one person, but
the sound and the production, it has that throughout all the Cake records, right?
And I had no idea that I just thought it was, one group. Yeah. And to find out it's really just one guy. Yeah. And that he just keeps reassembling, but his sound, is throughout.
Yeah, you could just do a playlist of all Cake albums. Right. You know what I mean? And it would just be really, really good to kind of get into. And it's quirky, it's funky, it's alternative, but it's not alternative. Right. There was a sweet spot when, alternative was first kind of hitting in the early 90s where they didn't know what it was. Yes. And so it was sort of like on, I know the alternative, the alternative station in our area. Yeah. They were playing some of everything. So we heard like Julian Cope, we heard like Prince's Get Off, we heard like Trent D'Arby's records.
You hear Fishbone.
Fishbone. You heard so many different.
Even the Beastie Boys.
Cake, Beastie Boys, along with Nirvana, along with hearing like, Pearl Jam and, the usual culprits with respect to what we think alternative is now. But at that time, it was just a potpourri of just different stuff that went into, Sarah McLachlan.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah,
it was so many different things that you heard. It was all over the place. And
that was, I don't know, that
Urban Dance Squad. Faith No More. It's like all of this stuff was kind of being mixed up in this,
and it was a joy to listen. Then I mean, I hate to sound old, but that was like the magic.
It's like they didn't know what it was. Yeah. And then after a while, they kind of decided, okay, this is what alternative is.
Yeah, right. It is only this and nothing else.
Yeah. And it kind of became the grunge age.
Yeah. And then rap and roll. I mean,
I'm saying I'm saying it evolved to being more or less grunge. Yeah. I mean, where it was like, Pearl Jam's, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, STP, all of those groups were kind of, Candlebox, all these groups were all part of what made alternative, so, but it was one kind of sound.
Right. And then, song after song after song after song. All right, so another group that we think you guys should check out, which we love, who came, I guess, a few years back locally, King's X. They're a black kind of Christian rock.
Well, the lead singer is black. The bass player, lead singer, and they have this hard Beatle-esque sound.
I like that.
That's really the way that, because they do those Beatle harmony.
Yeah. But they're really a strange version.
The guitar player, what's his name? Ty Tabor or something like that. But just unbelievable the stuff that he does as far as just his chord selection and the inversions that he decides to use. Just the way that he decides to harmonize those chords, to me, is so unique. And that, to me, is a big part of what makes their sound, I guess, so huge to me. It's such a huge sound that they have. And then Doug also plays like that 8-string bass. It's like, which also kind of gives that same sound to it.
And then it's also their vocals.
The vocals are just great. The harmonies are just unbelievable.
Yeah, I love that. Also, so that was on the Rocky side, but of course on the R&B side, we didn't realize the impact of a group like Tony was such great songwriting. From 1990 to 1996, the Revival album was really good, and then Sons of Soul, and then of course we like House of Music too. So they seem like more throwaways at the time. But then, as we look back,
but they always, they've always just had really good songs, and It Never Rains in Southern California.
But I thought, I thought, that would continue on with other groups. You know how things usually just evolve. And I'm saying it seemed like at the test of time, those songs are things that to me still sound good versus, you know what I'm saying?
Well, but because the thing has always been, to me, is kind of like the layman R&B band. The guys kind of just playing together, and they decide they're gonna put together a band, and they get out there and start playing. That just kind of died, And I'm saying, I think like the last one to kind of come out of that would be the Roots.
Yeah, right.
But the Roots is less R&B, more kind of rap hip hop.
Yeah.
Than they are, So I think like R&B bands would have been Pretty Brown Eyes. Who was that?
Mint Condition.
Mint Condition.
Yeah. Okay.
That might have been like the last band.
Okay.
That was big like that. Now, again, this is the great thing about social media and stuff that's happening out there, that there are probably other R&B bands that might be out there doing some stuff. Yeah. And you guys, think of them.
Please put it
throw them in the link below.
Put it in the description,
yes. Say, hey, you need to check out this band.
Right,
that band, whatever it is. That's great. I'd love to add it to the playlist.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
All right, so another one who I know we've shared on our musical discoveries, but we think needs to be on your playlist is Ben Harper.
Yeah.
And he's been consistent in his commitment to doing what he wants. And that has, morphed throughout the years, but it always is true to him.
Yeah. So it's a folk. Let's start with blues. So I think that quintessentially Ben Harper is a blues singer.
Yeah.
But, there are folk elements to what he does. Yeah. There are kind of rock elements.
Yes, he got
his funk elements. And there are reggae elements to what he does. Yeah. Kind of crosses all those different things, So, it's...
It never seems like he's chasing anything. And I guess that's the thing that always is inspiring for me.
Yeah.
For somebody who just keeps doing it. And he's like, hey, I'm feeling like blues today. I'm feeling like what's the guitar? Where they play it like
the overall that he plays.
Yeah. So he's feeling like that. We'll do that. Oh no, I'm feeling hard rock now. Yeah. So and so again,
and he's done some blues stuff like with Charlie Musselwhite. Yeah, they did an album together.
Yeah.
He did like an album with the Blind Boys of Alabama.
Oh yeah.
So he's just done so many different things. And he does. You're right. This kind of goes where his heart.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. Another group that has aged like fine wine, and that I know I didn't appreciate fully back when we first heard them, is Skunk Anansi.
Yeah.
And I'm saying especially with, I guess, some of the topics that they covered.
Yeah.
With, so we'll put the link below, but when I listen even to the lyrics of some of the music that they had out, the album that they had out early in the 90s, I'm like, this stuff is so relevant
today.
Yeah,
that's true.
Like you put this out now, and we be having the same. It helps add to this conversation that we're having politically and socially. So
and they're another group that I think is hard rock, but not necessarily kind of have more of a punk attitude.
Yeah,
but I don't know if you would call them punk per se, as much as they're kind of just a hard rock kind of band. I mean, I can actually see them and Living Color on the same ticket. So all right, next on the list is XTC. We love the fun stuff. Yeah.
Like Senses Working Overtime, Mayor of Simpleton, King for a Day.
Yeah.
But Dear God is my song.
Yeah, it is. No Thugs in My House is that one.
Yeah.
I think that's from what? Settlement? What's the name of that record?
I'm not sure, but we'll make sure we put a link below to that.
That was like the first one I'd ever heard. It's like there was a person I used to work with, and she gave me that tape. And she would say, "You need to check this out." And that's when I think it was All of a Sudden was on that. I think No Thugs in Our House was on that one. So English Settlement. That's the one. That's the record. That's the record that and that kind of, and that was the same thing. It was like kind of tripping back. I was at work, and a young lady I worked with gave me the Violent Femmes.
Oh yeah,
and so that's how I found out about the Violent Femmes. She let me hear that, and she also let me hear Scritti Politti. And as I found out about them, I was like, oh wow, I like this.
Yeah,
So
Scritti Politti is like having a pinch of honey. It's like a pinch is great, but a whole tablespoonful on the tongue is too much. So
but if you want a quintessentially well done, well produced 80s record, it's that. Cupid and the Psyche. 85, I think it is.
Yeah, I think
by Scritti Politti.
Yeah, they're on everybody's playlist. But All right. Next on the list is Rick James. And I know you were talking about how you felt like maybe he never really got the due he deserved. You want to talk about that?
Well, because of the fact that Rick James was one of those artists who I think never really crossed over. Per se, like I think people probably found out about like Super Freak more from You Can't Touch This, from MC Hammer doing it, and I think Nicki Minaj just recently sampled it, and basically he's doing the same thing. But other than that, a lot of times people don't like really get into like Mary Jane from his first record, or You and I from his first record, or Bustin' Out from his second record. I mean, Rick James was just unbelievable. I mean, you talk about, people say musical genius. This guy, I mean, he could play everything. He did play everything. I mean, and
he had a vision for the branding and all that.
Whole thing, this whole thing. He was that. He was taking, what George Clinton and the funky groups were doing in the 70s. And he really is a person who kind of springboarded it into the 80s. Mm-hmm. So with that Come Get It record, that was, I think that was released in like 78. Mm-hmm. That record was crazy good. So, and we sleep on him because at the time, especially during the 70s and 80s, Black artists were kind of relegated to Black radio.
Right.
And very few Black artists kind of crossed over. Mm-hmm. And so we don't see that today.
Right.
But back then radio was really segregated. Yeah. And so a lot of these artists, because of that, are overlooked. Yeah. And of course he has some character issues. So I'm sure that might keep him out of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But to me, Rick James deserves to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Based on the work that he's done, he needs to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's just me.
Yeah, well, because Phil Spector can make it. Anyway. All right, next on the list from the 80s/90s is Fishbone.
Yeah, Fishbone, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Again, I can't say enough about Fishbone. It, kind of taking George Clinton, But it's not just that. They do ska.
Yeah.
They do rock.
Yeah.
And they just do stuff that you can't even just categorize.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just crazy.
And
stuff.
the branding, oh my God, I'm sorry, but if there was an iconic T-shirt, that would be one that I would wear. Which that one little fish, and we're good.
Yeah,
that one little fish bone, right? Yeah. Like that's branding gold.
Right.
When you run across something like that, keeping it forever. All right. The next on the list is Living Color, and then I don't know if you guys know, but it's Danny Glover's son was the leader. But it started.
No, he's not. Corey Glover is not Danny Glover's son.
He is. He is.
He's not.
I thought we figured that out.
No, he's not.
You mean Donald Glover's not?
No, Corey Glover is not Danny Glover.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll edit that out.
Okay.
All right. So Living Color started that whole black rock push, but we stalked them for a minute when they were
whenever it started. Them along with Tracy Chapman kind of came out about the same time. And this is a group I think kind of gets trapped by its own success. So they might be looked at as a one-hit wonder. Yeah. Because people know the cult of personality. Yeah. And that's all you kind of know about them. Yeah. It's kind of like, I think sometimes that happens to Tracy Chapman. Yeah. Everybody knows Fast Car, but you don't know anything else. Right. She didn't write anything else.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, no, she went on to write other great stuff. Right. And that's the same thing with Living Color. Went on to do other great songs. Just kind of fell out the mainstream. They were kind of like... just after a while, they started making music, and there was just no place for it to fit. Yeah. For whatever reason, it just did not. At them, Transfer Darby or
Sananda Matria.
Right. Mm-hmm. Just after a while, for whatever reason, there wasn't a place for those types of groups. And for some reason, Lenny Kravitz kind of pushed through, and these groups didn't. And I don't know why. Yeah. But that's the way it is. So. Yeah.
All right. So another great group. We'll put a couple songs by them in our playlist, and Cameo is on the list. So now we're starting to a nice bunch of what we're gonna call this the funk section.
Yeah, kind of. I guess so. Again, these are groups to me that are more than just that.
Okay.
But I think a lot of times they kind of are the victims of what I was just talking about earlier.
Okay.
Of the segregation that went on with black radio and pop radio, where these groups just, for whatever reason, never, quote unquote, crossed over. So, and like Cameo, when they did, they became like this novelty act. So people like the Cod Piece and Word Up, and so you think about them as that, but you don't know about like Shake Your Pants or I Like It or some of these other songs that they did, back in the late 70s, early 80s that are just monster songs, and again, a lot of times people gave like Prince and even to some degree Michael Jackson that credit for fusion like funk and rock and that kind of thing, or like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, kind of giving them the credit for doing that. But what they miss is that, Rick James, Cameo, and, Isley Brothers, all these groups were doing this long time ago. Yeah. And so I think that's the part that's overlooked. And again, another group that to me could be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Talking about Cameo.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. Commodores is next on the list.
Another one. Again, I think people know Brick House.
Yes.
That's it. But they've got so many great songs. Just tons of them.
Yes.
Even
in the ballads. Oh my God.
Yeah, the ballads are just.
And I wasn't even a ballads person, but those are just
It's like, again, I mean, you want to hear Lionel Richie's younger voice. You want to hear Lionel Richie with, they're quintessentially an R&B band, but kind of pop too. Because he was writing these pop ballads back then. Like there's even on the same album that has like, Brick House on it, Easy's on that, Zoom's on that. So these are other songs that he has done, and then, people don't even realize like Sail On, that was a Commodore song. Oh, wow. Three Times a Lady, that came out. The Flying High, that was another album that came out. That was, I think it was released after their live album. that particular album came out. So it's like, I don't know, Commodores again. I slept on. People don't realize how great these were. Like, to me, when I was growing up, they were like the super bands. Like, I looked at the Commodores as being like Led Zeppelin or any of these other groups. Same thing, Earth, Wind, and Fire. They were like Led Zeppelin, some of these other groups. For me, you know, when we went to go see them live, oh my goodness, they were just a spectacle. They were unbelievable. You know, so I mean, I have, I think, a different perspective kind of based on that. So.
Love it. All right, next on the list is the Ohio Players.
Oh, God. You know, Prince wouldn't exist without them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, that's, I mean, the Ohio Players, soul, kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Things like Heaven Must Be Like This, Sweet Sticky Thing.
Yeah.
It's got this jazzy feel to it, right? Yeah, What the Hell from the Fire album. Straight up rock, you know. I mean, this just stuff that they did. I mean, again, the Ohio Players had it all. They fused it all. You know, unbelievably tight band, and unbelievable grooves. You know, so funky.
Yeah, funky. And those album covers. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was his staple. You know, that was it.
Yeah.
You know what Ohio Players album.
Yeah, you really did. And you still, to this day. All right. Next on the list is Brothers Johnson.
Brothers Johnson, the late Louis Johnson, and you know his brother George. Louis has played on some of everything as a bass player. George did too. These guys, they started off with Billy Preston.
Oh.
And so, you know, from then, you know, they kind of moved on and, you know, put out their first record circa 1975, 76. This guy get the funk off my face on that one.
Okay.
And again, they've done some of everything. You know, again, they are just rock. It's and they do the funky stuff, of course, just straight up R&B, just everything.
Yeah.
You know, again, you just have to go back and just kind of check out their albums. And the plan, Louis is, you know, and I'm kind of biased because it's bass, but Louis is just unbelievable.
And to close this list out, one of your favorites and an adopted one of my favorites is Johnny Guitar Watson.
Yeah, I know, and it's sort of like Johnny Guitar Watson has a long history.
Right, that's
dates,
what.
Like longer than
a teenager.
Right. What? Yeah, I mean, like to the 50s.
Right.
You know, so he had a song I think it's called Space Guitar that he did like in the 50s, and then he had done like a version of Gangsta Love. I never heard that. The version I heard was when he redid it himself in like 1978, and it was on his Giant album, and he redid Gangsta Love, and that's the version that I'm accustomed to.
Right.
So I got to see the remade Johnny Guitar Watson, who kind of fused blues with funk. Yes. Right? And he just came up with this original and unique sound.
And I mean, that is kind of the, I hate to say it, the foundation of BPJ, Bourgeoisie Paper Jam, because that whole feeling like you're riding a horse. Yeah. When I hear his music, I hear it's like that Western type of cadence that kind of underlines a lot of the BPJ for me, because a lot of the things that your grooves seem like we're riding. Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, I can see that because just to me, as a kid, it was the most unique thing I ever heard.
Yeah.
You know, it was just such this
and definitely,
and unique
I was about to say, it still stands.
Yeah, it stands out by itself. It's like,
it's like black people doing country western, but it's not country western because
it's funky. It's got all these things to it, you know.
So I guess that's why I'm a fan, because it's obscure and it is a special mix. Like you won't hear that mix. You know, flipping the stations. It's just not gonna, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, songs like "Real Mother for You" or "Superman Lover." You know, it just Johnny Guitar Watson is just he's a genius to me that's been overlooked, and you know, he was even overlooked back in the day.
Yeah.
So, but
he persisted, which we love. We love that. What do you guys think? Who would you add to our playlist of underappreciated bands, groups, artists? We'd love to hear about it. We like to add to our own musical collection.
Yeah.
So make sure you drop it in the comments below. And what else?
And we will be doing our live stream for Obtanium Flow.
Yes.
It will be on December 1st at 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
PM.
Yeah, PM.
Not AM.
9 in the morning.
All right, and t-shirts, Retro Flow t-shirt,
Yeah.
and the Clouds t-shirts are available. The links are below. Please check us out. And our book will be coming out in the next week. Oh my God, so excited. So there'll be a link below for that too. There's a special discount code too. So make sure you check that out. If you dig the vibe and you want to be a part of the tribe, be sure to
subscribe.
We're wishing you love, peace, and
chicken.